Let's now look at a few different ways you can set and use environment variables in a pod/container in a Kubernetes cluster. So the first method is basically a direct method. So that's what I'm calling it. So let's jump to a YAML file that I have in my own Kubernetes cluster. This is how the YAML file looks, which is pretty simple. So except the environment section where you have the name of the variable and then you have a value for it, and you have another variable and you have a value for it. So I'm actually setting these two variables in this container. So let's see how that works. I'm gonna go ahead and create this pod. The pod is created, so I'm just going to see if those variables are actually set inside this container. So these two variables are set in this pod that I just created. So that's a direct method. Moving on to the second example. This is not a different method, it's just a variation that we can actually apply to the first method. So this example shows like how we can of course set the environment variables, and not just that, you can actually use that in your command and argument sections of your container, right? This is basically going to print the value of this service name every 3 seconds, and it's a while true loop, so it's going to keep doing that, right? Let's just look at the log that is being generated by this pod, and as you can see, I'm actually tailing the log of this example 2 pod, and basically it keeps on printing this line, which basically is coming from this particular argument or the command actually, right? So let's look at another example. We do have the name of the variable in here, but the value is actually retrieved from a config map. So what it says here is basically I want to look at app properties config map, and I want to get the value from app properties, and we have a key, and I'll show you another file. Basically this is the file that we are going to use to create our config map. Okay, so this file contains environment variables like this, like you have variable 1, variable 2, and you have some values set for it. We are basically like retrieving all these environment variables from this config map actually. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and create this config map over here. I'm gonna call it app properties, and I'm gonna borrow a command from my notes. That's the config map, and I'm going to create the pod. This pod is actually going to just print all the environment variables as soon as the container is created. So we can just check the log of this pod, and we should see a bunch of environment variables in the output, right? And you can see that we have variable 1 and variable 2, and if you're wondering what are these other variables, these environment variables are set by default by the Kubernetes processes actually. Okay, so now let's look at one more example where we use secrets. So I have a secret called my root password. Okay, so and you can just create it using a YAML file or kubectl create secrets command, and you can create the secret and put your password, and if you want you can create another secret with the username. So you can do all that. So you can just create a secret and in your YAML file, and This is a typical MySQL YAML file where you can actually plug in your secret. You're referencing your secret. Like in here, I'm actually referencing to this MySQL root password secret, and that actually populates this environment variable, and that is kind of required for starting up the MySQL database inside this container. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Those are all the different ways you can use and set environment variables. I hope that was useful. All right, thank you guys. Bye.